The engineers at Jeep introduced their two newest advances in four-wheel drive technology. The rugged all-new Jeep Cherokee and the luxurious all-new Jeep Wagoneer.
Back in 1984, the Jeep division of American Motors released an all-new version of their classic Cherokee SUV, with the hope that it would help keep AMC afloat. Although it couldn't prevent their takeover by Chrysler in 1987, the XJ generation of the Cherokee differed greatly from its competition by having unibody construction, but also by keeping its 80s boxy design nearly unchanged for 18 years. And the name of the car itself hasn't been without controversy either. This is a story of the Jeep Cherokee XJ. This is my old car.
The rugged all-new Cherokee, the luxurious all-new Wagoneer. They're leaner, they're meaner, and they now join the world's largest selection in four-wheel drive.
When it comes to four-wheel drive, one word says it all, Jeep.
I have been getting many requests to feature the XJ Cherokee since the start of my channel, but admittedly I was holding off on it since I had imposed my own rule early on that excluded it because the Cherokee, at least in name only as of 2022, is still in production. But there was a break in Cherokee production in North America starting after 2001, when it was replaced with the Jeep Liberty, and when the Cherokee name returned in 2014, it was an entirely different car, so much so that I know some Jeep fans were not happy about that naming decision, as well as those who have been against the use of the name all along. More on that later.
Bronco 2 never made it. S10 Blazer 4x4 never made it.
That persuaded me to do this episode, but also since I had already done the same when I did my S10 Blazer episode, as the current Chevy Blazer also shares nothing with the version that launched in the 80s.
And Jeep Cherokee has more horsepower per pound than Blazer, and higher mileage than both.
I also want to do this episode since Jeep's new Wagoneer model has been getting a lot of press lately, and I think some may not realize that the XJ Cherokee also had a Wagoneer version, which is a rare find today. Voting is also complete for upcoming top 10 episodes for worst or best family sedans. I'm not sure yet on when those episodes will be created or aired, but I will provide updates once I start on them. The original design of the XJ Cherokee dates back to 1978. Back then, the Jeep division was the only portion of American Motors that was keeping the company afloat, but ultimately not enough to survive on their own, hence their partnership with French automaker Renault. It was that partnership that helped make the XJ Cherokee a reality, as Renault engineers were also involved in the design, prior to Renault officially taking a significant stake in AMC the following year. Renault saw the potential in also selling the Cherokee in Europe, so if it wasn't for Renault's involvement, it is quite possible the XJ Cherokee may not have happened, or at least it may not have been the same car we all remember today. Prior to the XJ version of the Cherokee, AMC had already been using that name on a larger truck, known as the SJ platform.
Say, it's a good thing that Cherokee has four-wheel drive.
That platform had existed since 1963 with the original Wagoneer, and the Cherokee name was added in 1974. These first Cherokees were among the first vehicles that were advertised as a sport utility vehicle, a term that is nearly ubiquitous today, but not so commonplace in the 70s. But although the SJ Cherokee was definitely large enough for families, it was a bit too large and off-road focused to meet the needs of many suburban families. The XJ Cherokee, which at the time the XJ was short for Experimental Jeep, arrived on the market just after rivals Ford and General Motors had introduced smaller SUVs, Ford's Bronco 2 and GM's Chevy S10 Blazer and GMC S15 Jimmy. The GM and Ford versions were first released as two-door versions only, as they shared a platform with their compact pickup lines. As AMC learned of the development of their rival SUVs as being two-door models, AMC and Renault designed the XJ Cherokee to offer both two- and four-door models from the start, as they saw the potential for the four-door model being more practical for suburban families. The popularity of Jeep's four-door option would eventually persuade GM and Ford to offer four-door versions of their compact SUVs. AMC also took a much different design direction with the XJ Cherokee as compared to their rivals. The Cherokee wasn't a typical body-on-frame design, as its SJ predecessor was, but instead was unibody, which was possible considering the Cherokee wasn't sharing a platform with a pickup truck, at least not yet. This design made the Cherokee more like a taller station wagon, and even the spare tire was mounted inside and not on the back hatch, as the thinking was that family buyers were not going to be doing serious off-roading that would necessitate easy access to a spare. But unlike a typical car, the Cherokee had solid axles both front and rear to maintain its off-road capability. As noted before, two- and four-door models were offered from the start, but unlike some similar vehicles of the time, there was no difference in overall length or wheelbase for either Cherokee, just longer front doors for the two-door model. Being that it was the early 80s, the XJ Cherokee design cues were a perfect match for that era, with almost no curves to be found in the bodywork.
Experience it for yourself.
Get in!
The early 80s boxy look would eventually give way to more aerodynamic shapes in many other cars by the 90s. But not so for the Cherokee, as its square shape became part of its appeal. Jeep also continued the tradition of the former larger Wagoneer model by offering the same trim on the smaller XJ. Starting in 1985, the Wagoneer differed from the base Cherokee by having a pair of vertically stacked headlamps and different grille treatment. Like the SJ model that preceded it, the XJ Wagoneer maintained its family wagon status by offering vinyl wood sides. Back then, both the Wagoneer and base Cherokee models had not yet adopted what would later become a Jeep trademark across all their models, the 7-slotted grille. With Renault having a majority stake in AMC in 1985, they were also able to get the Cherokee sold in Europe, initially only as left-hand drive models, and marketed them as the Renault Jeep Cherokee, even though Renault did put their own badging on the car. Right-hand drive models for the UK didn't arrive until 1993. One surprising fact of this, at least to me, was that Renault decided to keep the Cherokee name when sold in Europe, despite European buyers not sharing the same understanding or connection with the name Cherokee as it did in North America. Even the Cherokee was in China, as AMC had established a joint venture to build Cherokees in China, although they were marketed there as more high-end luxury models. Also in 1985, seeing the popularity of the compact pickup versions of their rival SUVs at Ford and GM, AMC also released the Comanche, which was a hybrid in terms of its design, by having a typical pickup body on frame behind the cab, but everything from the cab forward was essentially a unibody XJ Cherokee. It only lasted until 1992, as future owner Chrysler had trouble successfully marketing it along with their Dodge truck line. The Comanche story is long enough that I am considering its own future My Old Car episode. The XJ Cherokee proved to be a hit soon after its launch, and that, along with the overall appeal of the entire Jeep brand, was the biggest factor in Chrysler's bid to buy out Renault's share of AMC, and eventually take over the rest of AMC by 1987.
All of this is precisely why 4-Wheel and Off-Road magazine named Jeep Cherokee 4x4 of the Year.
Although Chrysler either killed off or rebranded old AMC and Renault designs to become Dodge and Chrysler models, they left the Jeep line as is. Soon after the XJ Cherokee launch, AMC had been planning its replacement, which would eventually become the Grand Cherokee. But the sales of the Cherokee were still doing so well by the introduction of the Grand Cherokee in 1992 that Chrysler decided to keep both lines in production. Initially launched with a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder produced by AMC, the first Cherokees for North America could also be had with a GM-sourced 2.8-liter V6, and European models getting turbo diesels from Renault. A 4-liter inline 6-cylinder was also offered by 1987, which, although Chrysler was now in charge, was still an AMC design, remaining an option through the rest of the XJ Cherokee's model run. By 1991, Chrysler began offering an updated higher output version of the old AMC 6 that was available in Cherokees designated for government and police use, even offering an official police package beginning with the 1992 model year. This inline 6 proved so reliable that Jeep kept offering it in other models like the Wrangler, as late as 2006. By 1996, with the XJ Cherokee being essentially unchanged for 13 years, it finally got its first and only refresh.
It's not just different, it's better.
On the outside, only those with a keen eye who knew the car would have noticed the refresh, as the overall boxy shape remained. Inside was an all-new dash, and updates to the unibody frame and door seals made the XJ easier to drive at highway speeds. However, soon afterwards, the XJ had its third owner since its inception, as Mercedes-Benz owner Daimler instigated what was then called a merger of equals, and Jeep becoming part of DaimlerChrysler. By 2000, thanks to Daimler executive Wolfgang Bernhard, the Cherokee was deemed far overdue for replacement, and he pushed for its cancellation. In the automotive world, having a vehicle in your lineup unchanged for more than 15 years is almost an eternity, so the push to cancel wasn't without precedent.
The Jeep Cherokee is a familiar face both on and off-road because it's been around in this same basic form for over 15 years.
Yet the Daimler execs likely didn't understand the XJ's old-school design is what made it popular. In fact, today, XJ Cherokees made before the refresh in 1996 are typically considered more valuable, assuming they haven't already rusted away, as they retain more of the original AMC design. 2001 was the XJ's last model year, and its replacement was called the KJ platform, and renamed the Jeep Liberty in North America. However, it maintained the Cherokee name elsewhere. The KJ was replaced in 2008 by the KK platform, which was also shared by the Dodge division for its short-lived Dodge Nitro SUV. This model still maintained a more boxy shape than most anything else Chrysler sold.
Baby, baby, rock me gently, rock me slowly.
But that all changed in 2013, when the KL platform began for the 2014 model year, and is still in place today. This marked the return of the Cherokee name to North America, but that name is the only thing it shares with its XJ predecessor, much to the dismay of many die-hard XJ fans. Bringing back the Cherokee name also, more importantly, added to the ongoing controversy of Jeep using the name of a Native American people, something which in the last few years has become a heated cultural and political issue, both in and outside of the automotive world. Jeep's Grand Cherokee model was and still is a bestseller, and Jeep's official stance on this is that they believe they are honoring the Native American people by putting the Cherokee name on their cars. But I'm sure if you ask anyone from the Cherokee Nation how they feel about it, they likely aren't honored by it, since Jeep has been profiting off their name for decades now.
Today in 2021, as Chief of the Cherokee Nation, I am saying categorically that I think it's wrong to use our name to peddle a vehicle.
With the recent introduction of its new Wagoneer model, I had expected that maybe this was Jeep's way of transitioning away from the Cherokee name, but the opposite seems true, since they now also offer the new 3-row Grand Cherokee L, which is essentially a slightly less luxurious Wagoneer. The current Cherokee has evolved into the ubiquitous crossover, and still sells well for Jeep. Back in 2021, the CEO of Stellantis, which now owns the Jeep brand, said he is open to ending the company's use of the Cherokee name, but as of the recording of this video in April 2022, I haven't seen any evidence that that will happen anytime soon. The Jeep Cherokee XJ sold almost 3 million copies, so Jeep knew the name meant a lot to many people, but it clearly doesn't mean the same thing to all people. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the like button and subscribe to my channel.
You look lost.
I do?
If you once owned a car from the 80s to mid-2000s that you rarely see today and would like it featured in a future episode, leave a reply in the comments or contact me at the email shown here. See you next time.
Good luck, cowboy.
Thank you.